Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 24. I Fight. A few days later, the collectors arrived once more. Again, a meeting at the office. The people were assembling unwillingly, some were trying to hide. They had to be urged there several times. The agitators, the deportees, and the locals. The commandant and the chairman explained that the heroic Soviet army had defended our capital from the fascist scum. The soldiers needed clothes, food, and arms. In short, our region promises one tank. A lot of money is needed. It has been calculated that each working citizen must give 300 rubles. The audience is silent. Finally, a rustling and murmuring begins. Some tried to slip out quietly from the office. I was among that number. The light in the office stayed on until the morning. The agents did not leave even the following day. To extort 300 rubles from people who had nothing, who barely had anything to eat, was not easy. But if the plan was not carried out, the agent himself risked being thrown in jail or sent to the front. In the morning, as soon as I came to work, I was asked to the chairman's office. I knew that this boded no good, but I was determined to resist, to give nothing more. When I had left home, my whole family asked me not to provoke dangerous discussions, and my middle son, Stasiukas, holding on to my hand, walked me to the door and begged me, "Mommy, just don't get excited. Defend yourself coldly in English style." And so, upon entering the office in which were seated the agent and the chairman, I remembered Stasiukas' advice and decided to be strong and very cool. "Well, Zukauskiene, how much did you bring? Your family must give 1,200 rubles. "I have no money and I brought none. Besides, during the meeting I heard that a worker must give 300 rubles. Why does my family deserve such an honor of 400 rubles? Only 3 of us work for nothing and 2 children go to school. In the summer your second son was also working." "Fine, I agree. Whatever the 4 of us earned in 7 months, I give you everything to the last kopeck. Comrade Chairman, write it down that whatever has been earned in my family's account, since we have not yet received anything, transfer everything to the defense fund." The chairman bent down as if to look for something in the drawer and answered nothing, but the agent with a raised voice shouted, "Don't try to be clever. I don't care about your accounts. Give me the money." Once again I answered coldly, even very coldly, "I have no money. I already said so, and secondly, I am not deaf. I can hear a normal voice. Besides, I am a Soviet citizen, and I have the right to ask you to address me with the formal you and not the informal thou." The agent became furious. The right. Jurists have arrived. Just think. "We did not arrive. We were driven here by force. As far as my right to the you form, it was already in 1918, under Lenin, that the law was passed. All functionaries and officers, as cultured Soviet citizens, would address their subordinates and ordinary citizens with you and not the informal thou." The agent became confused, looked at the chairman. The latter always addressed me with the formal you, and sometimes even with a sign of respect, that is, with my name and my father's name. Well then, one has to look for money. If one doesn't have any of one's own, then one has to borrow some. The agent addressed me without using you or thou. "I have no place to look since I lost none, and to borrow some from whom? Everyone here is a beggar." The agent turned red, but controlled himself from swearing and only said, "Good. I'll draw up a statement right away, then thou will see." In the threat, thou surfaced again. I remained silent. Scowling at me, he took a piece of paper. He was watching to see what impression his threat would make. I continued to be silent. He was disappointed. Usually, the intimidated local inhabitants, at the mention of the statement, would immediately begin to beg, to promise, while the women would usually begin to cry. The agent snorted, thought, wrote for a long time. I leaned my back against the wall and sat quietly. He kept casting glances at me to see if I will come to my senses, if I will become frightened. He wrote for more than a half hour. The chairman was smoking a hand-rolled cigarette, and I, leaning against the wall, my eyes half closed, half smiling, waited. Finally, he finished. Here, sign it. I have to read what thou scribbled there. Also changing to the coarse thou, I stretched out my hand. I'll read it to thee. Excuse me, I'm literate myself. I wish to see it with my own eyes, otherwise I will not sign. Here, read it. The agent extended the statement to me. He watched me with angry eyes to see how he will stun me. What dreadful things he had written there. Zukauskiene, 1. Is involved in anti-Soviet agitation. 2. Is destroying discipline at work. 3. Is sabotaging. 4. Refuses to pay government taxes, and so on. Of course, all this was not expressed so clearly, so concisely, and with many grammatical errors. It meant that for each one of those points, paragraphs 55 of the Penal Code is applicable. That means 10 years of prison. Everyone watched attentively to see what impression all these horrors would produce on me. They waited that I also, as was usual, would begin to cry, to beg, that I would run to look for money somewhere in order to get it at any cost and buy myself out of prison. In the meantime, I was reading and smiling ironically. While the agent was writing, I had the time to think over how I would behave, even in the worst situation. Emphasizing my words, I asked, when and whom did I agitate against the state? Well, even here, didn't you say a lot? So you consider my words agitation and your own as the state? I refuse to admit it. 2. Is destroying discipline at work. My, how strongly put. I'm not destroying anything. I and my family are working. What kind of an imposed discipline is this? Those state principles that each newcomer can destroy them so easily. Just you try, all of you, agitators, leaders, functionaries, to destroy my convictions. Do you understand what you wrote here? Shame. I started to be unwisely excited. They became abashed, tried to yell at me. I began to regain my equilibrium. Finally, I was in control of myself and said, give me a pen, I'll sign. The agent held out a pen to me. Taking the statement on which there remained a little empty space, I began writing somewhat on a slant, as resolutions are usually written. Lies, slander, I am not agitating anyone. The agent jumped. What art thou writing there? Thou only hast to sign. I raised my hand, palm up toward him. Easy, sit there quietly. Thou was writing almost an hour. I did not disturb thee. And now be thou nice and don't disturb me. And I continued writing. I do not destroy the discipline at work, since I myself work 18 hours a day. I do not engage in sabotage. I do not refuse to pay taxes. Only at this moment, I have no money. I allow my families and my total income, the whole sum, to be transferred to the defense fund, and I sign. They put their heads together to read it. The commandant entered. What can one do with the likes of these? They don't pay taxes, and they ruin the statement. The latter read everything through. He looked me up and down with bloodshot eyes and angrily, in a hard tone, said, Fine, we'll take care of her. We'll find a place for such a one. We have to send her away. I became frightened. I did not know how or where they would send me. What would my children and my husband do? Leave, wait outside the door. I waited, half dead. But I won't give in, I thought. I wanted terribly to run home and tell my family everything, but I knew that at this hour no one was home. My husband and my oldest son were working, and the 2 younger ones were in school. The rulers wrote and deliberated for a long time. Finally, the door opened, and the agent gave me a packet. The envelope, made from an old newspaper, was pasted together with a steamed potato. The office had no glue. The address Vysokoyar Central Soviet. Nothing terrible. I relaxed and wanted to run home. You'll bring it there and you'll give it to the chairman or the militiaman. Fine, but Vysokoyar is 30 kilometers away, and it's already afternoon. How can I go across the taiga? I don't even know the way. That's not our business. You got what you wanted, but leave right away, said the agent, and the commandant added, I'll come check in an hour. I ran home. My little one and Stasiukas had already returned from school. I immediately sent Stasiukas to get my husband from work. He and my son returned right away, since they worked close by in the felt factory. I recounted my battles to them. They all became very upset. My little one began to cry, clutched me, and pleaded, Mommy, don't go anywhere, don't leave us. I saw that the eyes of the other two and my husband's were filled with tears. It was very difficult for me to leave my children, my husband, my warm abode, and to go out into the unknown. I was almost tempted to go back to the office and ask for mercy, not for myself, but for my children. But I immediately overcame this weakness. I imagined how our torturers would rejoice and triumph having defeated us. In the end, what good would my atonement do if I had no money? And I had none. No, my dears, I must go. Nothing terrible will happen. Don't be afraid. Remember that I know how to take care of myself. I calmed them, but my own heart was far from calm. I'm bundled up with whatever I had. I stuck the packet over my bosom and I started out. The cold was more than minus 40 degrees Celsius. I stepped lively so that I would reach the next settlement, Svietlo-Zelenoye, before dark. My hands and my knees hurt terribly from the bitter cold. I rubbed my face constantly with my gloves so that it would not freeze. I reached Svietlo-Zelenoye before it became quite dark. Many Lithuanian deportees lived there also. I stopped at the abode of Alexiene, the wife of the former Minister of Agriculture. She and her 3 daughters lived in a separate chata from the Russians. She received me in a friendly manner. We slept on plain plank beds. She covered herself with a scarf, I with my coat. When it was light, I prepared to continue my journey. Alexiene worried about breakfast. My God, what could they give me? They had nothing to eat themselves. I categorically refused breakfast and I marched out. I still had over 20 kilometers to go. Only the taiga and no more settlements. At the edge of the village, the Lithuanian Alaunė overtook me. He was a blacksmith and somewhat richer. His wife also came running out. I told them where I was going. You probably haven't eaten. Come in, at least you'll have some hot soup. Otherwise you'll freeze. Such a long way. My God, my God. And why do they torture people so? They sent a few of us already. Don't worry. Nothing will happen to you there. Maybe you'll have to chop wood, but not for long. As long as you don't get frostbite. They gave me some hot soup and even a small piece of bread for the road, and a wool scarf to tie around my hands. You'll return it on the way back. Oh, how grateful I was to these people whom I had never met before for their sincerity and care. I set forth on an unknown road under deep snow, which was barely trod upon. The cold was burning. I constantly wiped my face with a borrowed scarf. My tears froze on my cheeks. My eyelashes and eyebrows were covered with hoar frost. I reached Vysokoyar at twilight. I asked where the regional Soviet was. Covered with hoar frost, stiff from the cold, I stepped into the office. A cozy warmth wafted over me like a blessing. I had dreamed of nothing else as I walked, only about a warm abode. And here it was warm, and even a lamp with a glass on it was shining. Everywhere else there were only oil-wick lamps. I shook off my frost-covered scarf. I wiped my eyebrows and eyelashes. With stiffened hands, I took out the cover letter from under my coat, and after asking if he was the regional chairman, I presented the packet to him. Where are you from? What kind of packet is this? The chairman looked me over questioningly. I am from Komarovka, the Lenin's Way kolkhoz, and what is written there I don't know. He tore off the newspaper envelope and began to read. With curiosity, and I must admit with concern, I watched the expression on his face. His face became angrier, and his brow contracted in a frown. I saw that he was angry. I was already prepared for an attack, but to my great surprise, the chairman looked at me rather with compliance and sympathy. "So why do you not want to pay taxes?" he asked, not angrily, not insultingly, and not sternly. I really did not expect that. I would gladly pay if only I had the means. We were only brought here last summer, you know that. When we were taken, we were not able to bring everything, and whatever we brought, we have almost exchanged all of it for food. It seems to me that it is not a secret to you that we earn nothing here, even though we work day and night. We have no money. The people who were brought here were not rich people, but ordinary working people who lived on a salary. Here at Visokoyar, there are also deportees who were brought together with us and from where we came. Obviously, you see what they are. I related to the regional chairman as convincingly as I could. He asked me a few more questions about my family, about my specialty, about my work and salary in Lithuania. Then a simple question, just as everyone else asked, why it was I and not my husband, the head of the family, who came. I explained to him that his health was poor, that he was a war veteran who had lost 50% of his work capacity, and that in Lithuania he was receiving a pension. He listened attentively, without anger, without mockery, not like the agents and the commandant. I felt a sense of humanity in him as well as sympathy. My shivering from the cold stopped. I warmed up. My hands became hot. My cheeks were flaming. Finally, the chairman nodded his head and said, "What fools they are! We need money and they sent me a human being. And to me, in the words of Christ, 'Go in peace, woman.' But where can I go at night? You know that it's 24 kilometers through the taiga to Svetlo-Zelonoye, and no one lives in between. Where shall I go?" "Why to the taiga? Ask someone here to take you in for the night. And in the morning, you'll stop by the office and I will have prepared an answer for them. You'll take it back." From the comforting warmth and light, I stepped out into the icy Siberian night. The cold was even sharper. My face felt as if it had been swept by a flame. In the windows of the hatas, small beams of light were flickering. I knocked on one door. In the hata, a man was sitting, and around the table a group of small children was doing their homework. In a crib, one more was kicking, while the woman was busy by the stove. I told them why I had come. "It's very crowded by us, and the little one won't let you sleep peacefully. Go there, the fourth hata from us. On the left, there lives a single woman with only a small daughter. They have no deportees. She will probably take you in," the people told me kindly. I went there. I found a young woman with a little girl about 10. I asked for lodging for the night. Fine, you can sleep here. We have enough room." She began asking who I was, from where, how I wound up at Visokar. I told her everything openly, who I was, from where. Get undressed, I'll get supper ready." I was very hungry, but knowing the price of food here, I was afraid I would not be able to repay her in any way. Don't worry, eat. My potatoes grew well this year. There's plenty." She placed before me a bowl of hot potatoes and also a cup of milk. I greedily ate the steaming potatoes, drank the milk, and felt very happy that I had not been sent to prison, that I had not been insulted, that tomorrow I could go back to my family, which was obviously very worried about my fate now. If they only knew how well I was doing. In the morning, I thanked the good-hearted woman for the lodging and the food and left. On the way to the office, I met a couple of Lithuanian workers. They started asking eagerly how we were living in Komarovka. I more or less told her how we Lithuanians were faring there, and I added, "We are living in the taiga and freezing. We have no saw, no axe. We cannot get any wood. We are working at the MTS. We'll arrange something. Watch, I'm going to the outhouse, and as soon as I come out, you go in. You'll find a saw." When I found the saw, I wrapped it around myself under my coat, tied the handles together with a handkerchief, and having picked up a packet at the office as if nothing had happened, started off for home. There were no bounds to my joy. It was still early morning. The snow, as if angry, was grinding under my feet. The taiga was still. The cedars and pines, from the weight of the hoar frost on their branches, seemed to be sleeping. I hurried as fast as my legs could carry me, but having come more than 20 kilometers the night before, and having rested little, my legs did not carry me very fast. I reached Svietlo-Zelonoye quite a bit after dark, again staying overnight, and the next day home, and my beloved husband and sons. How happy they were, how they kissed me, and how much worry, even tears, they had been those 2 days. After thawing my legs out in some hot water and having a bite to eat, I fell into bed and slept. I did not go to work that day. When I went back to the office on the following day, my girls, Tanya and Talia, eagerly began to ask me how everything had gone there. I related my journey with restraint. The commandant was overjoyed here. He said he will send you to the taiga to bring down trees. Now he'll know. Everything went back to its usual routine.